Hi everybody, this is JJ Long from JJArtworks and welcome to episode 4 of our 5-part series talking about mental health awareness. This episode, you guys, was more of like a rock star type episode, but it was a very, very scary place for myself and my family. And I like to call this episode the Beverly Hills Manic episode. And again, this is Manic episode number 3. And we'll just kind of piggyback from where I left off in the last episode. So my parents were finally like, hey JJ, why don't you move back home to Melrose and kind of hit the reset button on life, leave Worcester behind, come home, and just sort of take things easy. So I took their advice, and finally I was back near my support system around my family, and they really kind of nurtured me and gave me my space and was patient with me while I sort of tried to figure all this out. I mean, I wasn't really working at all. I was collecting disability, but it wasn't enough to really survive and get out on my own. And again, you know, I'm thinking to myself, I want to be independent. I want to be standing on my own 2 feet. Why is this happening to me at 33 years old? I don't understand it. And I was still kind of trying to find my way in life. And it was just a very, very tough spot. So, but I kudos to my family for allowing me to come home and sort of hit the reset button. That was very, very important. So I would say after 6 months of living home in Melrose, I finally was doing my due diligence now. I was researching the law of attraction. I was researching things like the Illuminati, the CIA, the FBI, because again, like I said, it felt like the Truman Show. It felt like there was cameras all around me. I felt like I was connected to the divine, to one source, energy, spirit, the universe, God, whatever you call it. And so I was doing a lot of research, and one of the celebrities out there that was very, very adamant about his beliefs in spirituality, especially when it came to the law of attraction, was actor Jim Carrey. And he had just started, him and Eckhart Tolle, they had just started a organization called GATE, which stands for the Global Alliance for Transformational Entertainment. And they would meet up at, I believe, at this place called the Saban Theater in Beverly Hills. And this was a place where I believe they would have meetings or they would have functions. So I was really compelled to go there. I didn't know. There's no one in my support system that was really educated on the topic of the law of attraction. Again, this was 10 years ago, before it became widely popular. I think this was only maybe 5 years after The Secret DVD had come out. And by the way, that's a book too. And also, just to piggyback off of episode 1, the law of attraction has been around for forever. I think in episode 1 I said it had only been around for 10 years. I'm just trying to go back on my word and say the law of attraction has been around since the test of time. So that's the first thing. But anyways, Jim Carrey was very open about his spirituality, and he just seemed like a loving person that would understand me. And I kind of looked at him as a guru and as a support system from afar. And I was just binge watching every Jim Carrey video you can possibly imagine on YouTube. And I was like, I really would love to meet him someday, and maybe he has the answers. So I somehow convinced myself to fly to Beverly Hills on a whim. And this was, it was difficult for me to break away from my family and to break away from my friends, because they all was very protective of me. They knew I was still dealing with manic episodes. They knew I was bipolar at this point in time, but they were very cautious of me exhibiting mania. And I think another thing that really got me depressed was I was afraid to show excitement around people. And that's something that was really difficult to not do, because I'm by nature a very excitable person. I'm positive, full of loving energy, and I like being excited. I think most people would like to be excited, but I was afraid to show excitement in fear that my family would put me in the psych ward. And again, no fault against my family. They're just doing what they feel is right for me. But it was really difficult being on medicine and being afraid of how people would judge me. And luckily, at this point in my life, that's kind of gone to the wayside, and I still try to be my authentic self every day, and I do show excitement even today being on medicine. But I really, was just, back then I was afraid to show excitement. So I remember the day before I got on a plane to go to Beverly Hills, I met up with some of my college buddies, and my brother came, and we saw a Bruins game in Woburn at this pub. And another byproduct of mania is spending sprees. So I just felt like I had an abundance mindset. I knew I was going to Beverly Hills the next day. No one, by the way, knew that I planned on just flying to Beverly Hills on a whim to meet Jim Carrey, which I had no idea if he was going to be there or not, but I was just acting on impulse. And I think when a lot of us bipolar people, when we are manic, we just act on impulse, and we're just kind of moving. We're moving at a fast rate, and we have fast thinking, and we're talking fast, and people just can't get a word in edgewise. And it's both a blessing and a curse. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I went to this pub with my brother and all my college friends. I think there was maybe 12 of us or something like that. And I was telling them, hey, I'm going to Beverly Hills tomorrow to, because I got this audition for Star Wars. Again, another white lie, because I wanted them to think that I had a legit opportunity to fly. And they're like, really? And I'm like, oh yeah, they're doing like episode 7. And, I'm going to be a stormtrooper and they're going to kill me or something. Or like, okay, that's crazy. That's awesome, man. I'm like, yeah, so I got plenty of money, drinks and food are on me. I'm like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I got the tab. Whatever it is, I got the tab. They're like, no, that's cool, man. Like, you're a struggling artist. You just got out of the psych ward. Like, I'm like, no, I got it. I was so convincing everybody that I was able to get the check at the end and pay for the tab on a credit card. And I think it was like over $800 for all of us. And they were like, man, like, we appreciate it, but you don't have to do that. And I'm like, no, I got it because, I'm going to be in the Star Wars thing and Disney's going to hire me. I'm going to make $1 million and I'm fine. None of this was true, by the way. So they're like, okay, cool. So I'm driving home. My brother's driving me and he's like, yeah, so about that, Star Wars gig, can I see the email that Disney sent you? And I'm like, no, what, why do you need to see that? Like, I'm totally, why, I don't need to prove anything to you. And he's like, all right, it's, that just seems like kind of a pie in the sky type thing, opportunity. And I'm like, no. So I was kind of planting the seed that I was going to California. And the next day I woke up, I'm like, today's the day. I'm going, I'm leaving. And I still had my own car, I was still driving, and I wrote a note and I left it on my parents' kitchen table, and I said, I forget what I said, but I think it was to the tone of going to Beverly Hills for an acting opportunity. I'll reach out to you when I get there. I was so out of it, everybody, that I didn't bring my cell phone, or I think I did bring my cell phone, but I didn't bring a charger. I didn't bring cash with me. I had no cash. All of my credit cards were maxed out at the time. And I just went with $0. This is the most ridiculous thing. I drove to Logan Airport. I parked my car. I just went up to the kiosk. I think it was Delta or American Airlines, I forget. But I go to the kiosk and I talked to the lady, or I think it was a guy, and I'm like, yeah, can I have a plane ticket to Beverly Hills? And he was like, do you have a ticket? And I said, no, I'm just, the next flight would be great. And he's like, okay, that'll be $1,100. And I said, okay, here you go. And I just put it on a card, or I think that was maxed out, or I put it on my debit card, and I started going negative in my bank account. I don't know how this happened, everybody, but I tell people it was a magical debit card. So I put it on this debit card, went through, got on the plane, 6 hours to California, got to Beverly Hills, and I get off the plane, and I was wearing like running gear for some reason, and there's really bright colors. For some reason, my eyes were, it's weird, that the two colors that stood out to me everywhere whenever I looked somewhere was like bright green and bright pink. And I was just like, I need bright green and bright pink. So I had like running pants though, like bright green, and then I had like a bright pink shirt. Like I stood out like a sore thumb, and there were like fluorescent colors too. And I get off the plane, you know, leaving the terminal or whatever, and this huge black guy comes to me. He's wearing a suit. He's like, "Hey, you need a ride?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I need a ride. That'd be great." And he drives a limo. So I get in his limo, and he's like, so where you going? And I'm like, I need to go to the Saban Theater to meet Jim Carrey. I can laugh at this now. And he's like, okay, well, where are you staying tonight? And I'm like, I have no idea. Well, what do you recommend? He was like, oh, well, I know like a hotel down the street. And I'm like, all right, cool, I'll go there. He's like, awesome. So I'm driving in the limo, and he's like, are you like some celebrity? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an actor. And he's like, do I know you or anything? I'm like, probably not, but you know, I'm still an actor. He's like, okay, cool. So we go to the hotel, and he drops me off, and he was like, all right, so it's gonna be like $50 or whatever. And I'm like, oh shoot, I don't have any cash on me. And I'm like, do you take cards? He's like, no, I don't take cards. I'm like, crap. Big jacked black dude, right? I'm like, oh God. Well, and he's like, I think there's an ATM at the hotel, so just go in real quick, get the money, and come out, and you know, we're square. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I go to the hotel. My card isn't working. I can't get any money out of the ATM. I'm like, oh my God. And it's going on 10 minutes, 15 minutes. The guy's like waiting for me, like he's got my luggage. He's like, what's going on with this kid? And finally I come out, and he's like, no. He's like, just, I got a reader. I got a card reader. Just let's square up. And I was like, all right. And I think I tipped him $50. And he's like, oh, thank you so much. I'm like, yeah, no problem. And I was just, once I got to the hotel, everybody, and by the way, the hotel room I got was something out of The Hangover. It was like a suite. Money was not an option, or it wasn't an issue. I was just using my magical debit card to pay for everything. And like I said, a byproduct of mania is spending sprees. So we're not very conscious of our finances. And this was the instance of my manic episode where I was not conscious of my finances. So I just kept using the card. It was going through. Again, no cash on me. And I stayed at that hotel for a couple of days. The next day, there was an event at the Saban Theater. And by the way, everybody, I have no idea if Jim Carrey's going to be there or not, but I'm trying to find someone that can give me answers. That's the whole reason I was out there. It wasn't to have a good time. It was to actually meet Jim and, you know, tell me about spirituality, tell me about the law of attraction, tell me about energy. You know, what do you and Eckhart Tolle talk about? Like, how do I learn what's going on with me? Like, there's something wrong and I don't know what it is. I need answers. That's the whole reason I was there. So the next day there was a performance at the Saban Theater, and it was one of Jerry Lewis's, the comedian, one of his last performances where he was alive. And I just walked down there in my running gear, right? Wasn't dressed for a concert or a show. And I go there, and there's a bar attached to the Saban Theater. And you know, well, before I get into the whole bar thing, I go up to the front desk or the box office, and I say, hey, you know, like I was wondering if, and the woman was like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, good. She's like, do you have a ticket? And I said, no, I'm actually on Jim Carrey's guest list, which is so crazy. And she's like, oh, actually, you're not on his guest list tonight. As soon as she said that, I'm like, oh my God, Jim's actually here. This is crazy. Jim's actually here. And everything I say, you guys, by the way, I was manic. So take what this whole entire story is a grain of salt. I mean, did I go to Beverly Hills? Did I, you know, go to the Saban Theater? Yes, these are all definite things. Did I get a hotel? Did I get a suite? Of course. These are definitely like things that did happen. But as far as like me, you'll hear the rest of the story, but as far as like anything that has to do with Jim Carrey, like I have no proof. The only way I'd be able to find this out is if I talk to him face to face, right? So that may or may never happen in my life, but hopefully someday it could happen. But anyways, she was like, you're not on his guest list tonight. I was like, oh, okay, no worries. She's like, do you want a ticket? And I'm like, no, I'm good. So I was like, oh my God, he's here. So the performance wasn't for a few hours, but there was a bar attached to the Saban Theater. So I went into the bar and just started buying drinks for people. And I was just using the magical debit card, meeting people, hanging out with girls, just being myself, but still being in an elevated state, but just having, doing shots, having drinks, having a good time. And then eventually this one woman's like, hey, I thought you were gonna go to the Jerry Lewis show. I'm like, oh yeah, shoot. She's like, it's like 11 o'clock. It's probably getting over soon. I'm like, oh crap. So I don't know how this happened, but the doors were open to the Saban Theater and it was like free admission. So I just walked in and I got a nosebleed seat. I just kind of sat in the back and I got to see Jerry Lewis perform for free, which was phenomenal. And he's a super talented guy, and I'm so fortunate that I got to see him before he died. But I'm looking for Jim Carrey. I don't see him. And at the end of these types of shows, people would go to the back alley and they would wait for an autograph from whoever performed that day. So I went to the back alley, and I didn't have anything for Jerry Lewis to sign or anything, but there was like, I don't know, maybe like 10, 12 people out there kind of waiting in the back alley, waiting for a signature. And no lie, you guys, I mean, I pray to God I'm right, but out in front of me walks Jim Carrey. He walks, he waves his hand, sort of like the Queen of England, just like, hey, how you doing? And he had a couple of bodyguards, and then he got into a black SUV and they took off. And I'm like, did that really happen? Like, and the only way I'm gonna know is if I ask him, and I'm prepared for him to be like, no, I wasn't there, man, sorry. It's totally cool, but I really truly believe that like he walked right by me. I really, really do. And it was a surreal moment, but then it quickly turned to, I was pissed off because I didn't get to talk to him. My answer just left. He just left, and he has all the information. Like, I really need to figure out what's going on with me. And I just quickly went into just a sour mood. And I'm walking back to the hotel, just like, hunched over, like, what's going on? I don't understand what's going on with me. I traveled across the country to get answers, and I can't even get answers. I'm like, this really pisses me off. So I go to the hotel room. The next morning, I get a call from the concierge, and they're like, yep, so your taxi's here to pick you up. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't call for a taxi, but I'm still just kind of going with the moment, just kind of living moment to moment, and just kind of going off my intuition and my impulses. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm leaving now. So I bring my suitcase and everything. I go downstairs, I get into the taxi, and he's like, all right, where do you want to go? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know where I want to go. And then I just started crying. I had no idea what to do. And I'm crying in front of a stranger. And he's like, hey, he could see that something was visibly wrong with me. He could tell that I was crying. And even though I had sunglasses on, he could tell I was crying. And he's like, do you have any family that you can reach out to? And I was like, yeah, I got a phone, but it's dead. And he's like, oh, what kind of charger, what kind of phone do you have? And I was like, oh, I have an iPhone. And he's like, oh, I get an adapter for that. So he plugged in my phone. We got a couple of bars, and he called my mom. And then my mom started crying on the other end. Oh my God, thank you so much for, taking care of my son. Because I hadn't talked to my family in like 3 or 4 days. If you remember, before I left for LA, or before I left for Beverly Hills, I left them a note saying, hey, I will call you once I land. But I didn't have I had like my license with zero money, a magical debit card, and my phone that was dead. And I just didn't think to get a charger when I was there. So anyways, it was just a difficult time. So I ended up using my magical debit card again, and I was able to come home. And my father's like, the first thing we're doing is we have to go to the police station. And I said, why? And he was like, well, I had to file a missing persons report because we honestly didn't know where you were. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that. And he's like, also, I picked up your car at Logan Airport. And I'm like, what? And he was like, yeah, so when you said you went to California, and your car was missing, we just wanted to make sure that you were telling the truth. So I circled the airport parking lot several times until we found your car in the parking garage. And he's like, I paid what you owed. It's expensive to park there. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And again, these are the fires that you need to put out, or this is sort of the turmoil and the trauma that you put your family through. If you're someone that's bipolar and manic, this is some of the aftermath that happens with the family. So again, everything that I say, all the value that I want to add to people that are suffering from mental health illness, I also want to add value to the families as well, because this is something that happens to a lot of people. Billions of people are affected by people that have mental health illness, or that have a family member that are affected by mental health issues. So went to the police station, cleared my name or whatever, said, hey, I'm alive, I'm here, I'm not missing. And that's how I said it at the police station. My dad was so pissed. He was like, you mother. So anyways, that's what happened. And then after that, this was another tough thing. So after that, my current therapist at the time, she's like, we need to talk real quick. And I said, sure, yeah, what's going on? She was like, I can't see you anymore. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I was like, I really need your support right now. I really need to talk about what's going on. And she was like, unfortunately, I can't have you as my client anymore. When you just flew to Beverly Hills on a whim, like, I'm held liable for you, and also for anyone that, God forbid you murdered somebody, or you jumped off a bridge, or, I'm held liable for that. So I just can't see you anymore. And I was devastated. I cried a lot, and, I'm like, I need answers. I need to figure this out. So it was just a very, very difficult time in my life, but that basically closes the book on episode 3 of, my manic episode, my third manic episode. And yeah, it was a crazy one. So again, like I always say, if you suffer from mental health issues, I love you. You're not alone. You will get through this. But please, please, please surround yourself by people that love you, that care about you, people that are going to listen to you and want what's best for you. And you will get through these manic and depressive episodes. You absolutely will. Just don't do things alone. Don't isolate yourself, and just surround yourself by people that you love. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you all in the last episode, episode 5. And we're going to talk about my 4th manic episode, which actually just happened a few months ago. So thank you so much. Talk to you soon.